Hello, hello, my dear friends. How is everyone doing on this May 7th of 2021, otherwise known as Resident Evil Village release day? I'm super excited about this game, partially because of how much I loved the first one, but also because of the now internet-famous villain character that you might have seen or heard of many times since that very first trailer, and I'm sorry, everybody seems to talk about how beautiful she is, but not that she might be drinking blood from your arm, here. What? But hey, back to that first point. Resident Evil Biohazard is one of my absolute favorite horror games, partially because it was my doorway into actually enjoying horror when I previously hated the entire genre, and also because I just think it's a really good game. I could gush so much about Resi 7, from the incredible sound design that haunts my dreams, to the chilling visuals, to the few carefully curated fake-out scares.
Stay away.
And to the fact that it's a perfect foot-in-the-door game to a series that's known for being incredibly lore-heavy and convoluted. I could talk about all these things, but what really makes this game shine is the incredibly crafted villain characters that are so dang memorable I can't get any of them out of my head. Each has a distinct personality and unique mannerisms, and they are what makes this game so unforgettable. However, I may have a bit of a controversial opinion to take. Village is taking a lot from Biohazard, not only in its success in gameplay, story, and perspective, but also in its evil female characters. Listen, I know Resident Evil has had lady villains before, but I haven't played any game before 7, and 7 itself is significant in that there are more distinct bad girls than bad boys, and in my personal opinion, the actual scary villains lean on one gender more than on another. Now, horror is subjective, so I'm sure some of you watching this video will have different opinions of which characters are spookier than others, but I think in general the female baddies in Resident Evil 7 are, both conceptually and in practice, more horrifying than the dudes. So my friends, whether you're waiting for your copy of Village to ship in or update, or you don't care for the Resident Evil series at all, I invite you to sit back and relax as I talk about these characters I love way too much for way too long. But before we get down to the nitty-gritty of da boys versus da girls, let me get through some quick mentions. First off, here's a little criteria / what this video is actually going to be about. I'm not going to be talking about anything that happens in any of the DLCs, or the demo, or any lore that exists outside the walls of Biohazard's main game. Like I said earlier, this is the only Resident Evil game I've played, and I only understand bits and pieces of the entire series' plot. So I'm not going to go into detail about how the events in this game relate to the rest of the games. I also won't be going through every single character in the game, only the ones that are intended to be both spooky and bad guys. So that's only Mia, Jack, Marguerite, Lucas, Eveline, and the Moldy Boys. And I'll be talking about what exactly makes me scared of each character, as well as what generally makes them scary to most audiences. Also, hey, this is my personal video containing my personal opinions, so if you have different opinions than those contained within this video, I encourage you to chat about them in the comments, or even make your own video about them. Alright, second, I think I need to mention two other characters just briefly.
Come on. Don't you die on us now. You have work to do.
Zoe is a pretty critical character in Biohazard, acting as both the suspicious, unreliable cohort and the friend behind enemy lines. She does carry a small amount of the horror forward as she's actively working with you and trying to help you, but she also keeps some vital, life-saving information from you, seemingly for her own amusement.
Well,
find a serum?
I just got done dealing with your mom and her fucking bugs. Wish you could have warned me.
Sorry about that.
If the story in this game went in a very different direction, Zoe could have been a triple agent type of character designed to deceive and ultimately fight the player in a battle of epic proportions. But it didn't, and she isn't. She also doesn't end up having any creepy transformation or even trying to hurt anybody. So a quick mention and a quiet question of why would she act like a villain if she was the only truly good person left is all she gets from me.
Hello?
Hey, it's Ethan.
Oh, hey. You alright? You just disappeared the other night.
Yeah, no, I'm good. I'm good. It's Mia. She's not dead, she's alive. She's back.
They found her? How? What happened?
I don't know. Look, I don't know how, but she's back. She's back somehow.
I also need to mention Ethan here. Some of you watching may be asking why he's the character you play as, he's not a bad guy. And you do have a point, but Ethan also says and does a bunch of weird things in this game. First-person horror games tend to go one way or the other with their player characters. Either they react to everything or they say nothing. Ethan seems to step on the line right between these two options, however, reacting in a completely understandable way sometimes and reacting in a suspiciously strange way a lot of the time. I mean, the man crouches under this monstrosity with no comment and only says, "Sorry, buddy," after, doing this.
Sorry, buddy.
Really, Ethan is a pretty effective and relatable player character, but his lack of terror in some of Biohazard's situations makes me feel just a little bit like maybe he's lost his mind just as much as all the others on repeated playthroughs. Last, I wanted to talk about the actual order of this list. I'm gonna tuck the molded into the boys section because from the actual in-game lore, it seems like a lot of them are men, but also because then I have 2 categories containing 3 characters, and that makes the organization part of my brain very happy. Also, this list is almost in the exact order of characters I find least to most scary, with the exception of Mia and Jack. I think Jack is a far more terrifying character than Mia, partially because I'm not a dude, which I'll get into later, and also because there's such a larger portion of the game where Jack is actively trying to kill you than the little bit where Mia is doing the same. So if you want my exact lists, watch the video, then swap Mia and Jack's places. I didn't do this in the writing or making of this video because it just makes more sense organizationally to section the characters by gender, and as I said before, good organization makes my brain happy. So without further ado, let's get on with talking about these bad boys and bad girls.
You, my friend, you are one lucky son of a bitch. You know, I actually envy you. What? You don't believe me? This toy? Well, you can't fake this.
First up on the boys' side is Lucas Baker, inventor extraordinaire and worst guy ever. And he may be the lowest on the list in terms of fear factor, but he's probably my favorite character in the game. Honestly, it's kind of funny how much the game itself pushes Lucas's personality on you before you even have to fight him. It's not like it has to. Lucas pretty much tells you himself that he's a complete jerk. Everything about him comes off as a character designed to anger you rather than one trying to scare you. From his mannerisms to the way he fights you, namely by sending you on wild goose chases around the house you thought you cleared, putting a bunch of cheap and deadly traps around, and tossing the molded into the fray so he doesn't have to do the actual damage. He also doesn't really have any redeeming qualities. Like the other family members showed signs of worry across their notes and journal entries that something was wrong with them before they became fully infected. But the only information about Lucas is his diary entries of that one time he murdered another kid? But this is really all the background you need to understand this Jigsaw-esque serial killer mastermind-like behavior. He's the kind of guy who meticulously plans out how to trap and kill you with explosives and mindless helpers, and tapes the whole thing so he can watch and laugh at your death later. This, of course, becomes his downfall, as a tape of his reveals just how to beat his supposedly impassable puzzle, and then he just runs away with a deflated quip and leaves all the stuff you need just sitting around for you to take. The man is so easily beaten at his own game that he doesn't even have time to be scary, and on top of that, he doesn't get a horrifying monster transformation. Lucas's psychopathic tendencies, or sociopathic, I'll leave that for you to debate, and eventual cowardice aside, he's genuinely the funniest character in the entirety of Biohazard. Don't get me wrong, he's got his serious moments, including this scene which is probably my favorite piece of video game acting of all time.
You see, Ethan? Not everybody wants to turn back the clock! What? What, Eveline? I'm just trying to show him. Not everybody wants to go back to how things were. Those are stupid bitch. She doesn't understand that I don't want to go back to how things were before my father found y'all. Not everybody wants to turn back the clock.
But he has this weird sense of dark humor that's almost meta without being in your face.
I know. Fucking password, right? Why don't you try 0814? No! 0621. No, it's 0514. Oh, come on. Take a chance. You never know.
The rest of the game is so unendingly serious that Lucas's section of the game takes its place as the weird comic relief of the story. But as a result, it loses nearly all of its fright. The Moldy Boys are next, and by the way, whoever named them obviously felt incredibly proud that day. Far too proud, considering looking at any of them makes me think that they're just made out of black vines rather than mold. Now, there's a few different forms of these guys, some more upsetting than the others, so let's go through them all. First up is the regular vine men. Tall, strong boys with long arms and absolutely terrifying teeth. The game's first introduction of these guys is pretty fantastic in terms of making them scary. But, as it happens in every horror game with lots of faceless enemies to dispatch, they feel a lot less unsettling as you face more and more of them. Then there's the big barfy guys, who I think could be scientifically referred to as heckin' chunkers. There's not a lot to these guys. They're big, they barf at you as their main attack, and there's only a few of them in the game, so they basically exist as molded mini-bosses. These guys don't bother me, mostly because of their method of attack. The other molded have to get up in your face to hurt you, so you're forced to, look at them. But since the big guys just barf at you, fighting them is a lot easier. It also helps that by the time you face off against more and more of these guys, you've built a pretty impressive arsenal and you can take them out pretty easily. Especially if you've played the game a few times before and know when and where they're going to pop up, so you can save some of your heavier resources. I could totally see them as far more intimidating to new players, though. Next up is Travis. I'm sure not all of them are named Travis, but the first one is, so that's what they're going to be called. They're basically just bigger, stronger versions of the regular boys, and as a result, they need quite a few more bullets to take down. This gives them lots of extra time to get in your face and deal some decent damage. The creepiest of this bunch by far are these low-to-the-ground jumpy boys. Every attack from these guys is a full pounce straight into the face, and they sure put a lot of oomph in it because nearly every attack leads to almost dying. They're small enough that you can be walking and looking straight in front of you, only to be surprised by a sudden attack from the front that you couldn't see simply because you weren't looking down. It also doesn't help that these guys are relatively smaller than the other molded, meaning you really have to stop and aim to take them down, which really doesn't feel good when they're actively preparing to jump straight into your face again. All in all, the molded really aren't that scary in comparison to the gruesome and powerful Baker family in Mia, but they can sure make your skin crawl when there's a whole bunch of them that you're forced to take down at once, or when they sneak up on you. Seriously, these behemoths may not look sneaky, but there's a quiet music track that comes along when the molded are about, and your firepower usually covers it. So occasionally you'll start hearing music in what seems like a peaceful moment, think to yourself, since when does this game have a soundtrack? And turn just a bit to find these sharp teeth 2 inches from your face.
Welcome to the family, son.
Last but definitely not least is your favorite menacing immortal dad and mine, Jack Baker. Jack starts out as a vague, unknowable, ghost-like character, but the infamous dinner scene does everything to establish him as the top of the pecking order. Even the next few minutes of gameplay demonstrate Jack's place in the household as the most formidable, as you're stuck without a weapon and you're forced to dodge under and around his watchful eye and deadly shovel. Unless you're resigned to the idea of never attending another family dinner. Honestly, it's these pieces of gameplay that make Jack such a terrifying character. He's the first boss you face in the game, but he's constantly portrayed as completely invincible and just an obstacle you'll have to dodge around, rather than something you can actually destroy. And this feeling is only cemented during your first boss fight, where you see him kill a man, attempt to kill you, force himself on top of a car that you're driving by ripping the roof off, attempt to commit murder-suicide, then get back up and keep trying to kill you while on fire, and then when you think he's finally dead, he grabs your gun and commits suicide again. You might have a few minutes of peace and easy breathing after that, but if you wander into the wrong room and end up finding the item you need to progress, what do you know, the guy who pretty much already proved immortality is real is back to provide more concrete evidence and chase you around until you slip up and let him attack you with a brand new weapon that every normal person has. He's like an unstoppable machine with one core goal, and that's killing you. Even when you have a moment where it appears he can't get to you and you have the bright idea of taunting him, he proves just how wrong you were.
You're gonna have to do better than that, boy.
He's not an idiot either, as proven when he moves the item you need to get outside to a place where you can't run away from him. And while you totally can shoot him here to speed this fight along, you can't actually hurt him until the man tears apart this little enclosure containing a normal chainsaw, which you have to attack him with, as well as a giant pair of chainsaw scissors, which he gets to attack you with. And sure, you can kill him here, but even when you do beat him, his body shows that he can still keep going to some extent. Listen, Ethan, I know we have different priorities here, but if I just killed a guy and his legs got up in front of me, I would not stop sawing until the legs were gone too. After this lovely battle, the game gives you plenty of time to truly believe that Jack is dead. Seriously, you have to face off against his wife and son before you see him again. But if you really did think that this guy wouldn't find you again, I'd like you to revisit every moment you saw him before, and how many times he proved he could come back to life, and maybe rethink your life situation a bit. Because of course, right as soon as there's a bit of hope in the game,
Sorry, get your ass back to the house. I will deal with you later.
Shoot, Mr. Baker, you can't be mad at me, it was your daughter who made the drugs. This battle isn't too cripplingly terrifying, as long as you don't stop to consider what Jack has actually become. But even when you think you've finally taken him down, he's got one last scare up his sleeve.
Ethan, this way.
Not leaving, are you?
Now, Jack truly is a frightening character with his unending strength and sole focus on killing you, but there's one thing about him that takes the edge off the fear he can cause, and strangely, it's the exact opposite of Lucas. Jack isn't the most terrifying character in the game because he still has some humanity left in him. Ethan gets to see him as he truly is in a strange situation later, and Jack has the opportunity to tell him what circumstances led to the infection of the Baker family, and it's clear that he loves his family. There are little hints here and there that Jack was once a good person, but one of the things that really gets me is when he cries out for his dead wife in your final fight with him. A few of these lovely moments shine through the horror that Jack causes, making him just a tiny bit less scary.
This is it. I remember this room. There's another door here. I'm sure of it. It's not here. It's gone. It's gone! We're gonna be a family now that you're here.
As we transition from the guys to the girls, I have to explain just a bit about who this game was made for. Most video games are made with a specific audience in mind, right? Like mobile games are primarily made for anybody who has a few minutes in between doing other things to play a couple rounds. And things like Call of Duty are made for people who enjoy shooting and combat in warlike situations. I think that's what COD's about anyway. Well, horror games are still primarily made with a male audience in mind, probably because most gamers are guys and most games are made by guys. So, the bad guys in horror games are made to specifically scare guys. Why does this matter? Well, there are certain monster and/or character designs that are only or primarily going to scare guys. Like, let me describe a few of these characters in general terms to give you an idea. These are the characters that are going to, in general, scare guys as well as me. Giant strongman that no weapons can kill, evil mastermind setting up deadly and disgusting traps behind the scenes to kill me, helicopter mom who's clearly lost her mind and now considers all bugs her children, creepy grandma, spooky little girl, and giant faceless creatures with sharp teeth. Makes sense, right? Now here's the list of characters that are probably going to scare most guys but aren't going to scare me. Ex-girlfriend, or in this case wife, who has become unstable and is desperately trying to kill me. Seriously, you can see in this interaction here that this is really what they wanted to go for when it came to Mia's character.
Ethan, it's okay. It's okay, it's me. I know you didn't mean to hurt me. You shouldn't have done that!
As well as in plenty of other moments where Mia is not in control of herself. There's a lot of I don't remember, followed quickly by arguing, followed quickly by, oh, I don't know, attacking you with a knife, or cutting off your hand, or trying to kill you with a chainsaw, while saying things like, you were always watching me. To be fair, Mia also has quite a few moments of seeming possessed, which are quite spooky.
I can hear her. I can feel her clawing her way back inside of me. Get out! Leave me alone! I've been bad. I deserve this.
But the general feeling of the character gets lost on me simply because I've never had to deal with or even see the real-life character that this sort of trope is based on. Of course, even if you did find the core of Mia's character truly terror-inducing, that feeling fades after being able to see how torn apart she is about the whole situation, and it pretty much vanishes after being able to take control of Mia and recover her lost memories. Just like with Jack, the regrets that Mia has over the situation softens her character just enough to remove some of that fear. You know what remains scary with literally every playthrough of this game, though? Grandma. What is it about this character that makes her so infinitely creepy? Is it that she looks one step away from a corpse, or that she only seems to breathe and never talk, or that it's incredibly difficult to tell if her eyes are open until she blinks? Or maybe, just maybe, Is it that she turns her head to look at you whenever you're in the room with her? I think for most people that last one would take the cake, but for me what's even scarier is that you're inexplicably unable to aim at her. She hasn't hurt me yet and doesn't seem like she wants to, but it still freaks me out. Also, here's something I found out when I was recording the game for this video, which is probably my 4th or 5th playthrough. If you crouch near Grandma, her entire body is all blurry. I was doing this just because I wanted to look at her shoes, but then I looked up and, well, there you go. It's strange, like whatever point is nearest to you is fairly normal, but the rest is really blurred out. You can look around and see plenty of things looking sharp, so it's clearly just her. Oh well, just another weird little thing about Grandma. After good old Granny is Eveline, the ghostly little girl who seems to be behind this whole mess. It's clear fairly early on that Evie somehow infected the Baker family with an erratic desire to act as her family and, you know, the gift of near immortality, and this makes them very eager to kill you, as you're attempting to take Mia away from the family, but also to do other typical family activities like buy way too many dog collars at the store or become cannibals. Later on, when you switch to Mia's perspective, you get a lot more information on Eveline, and the explanation is much more Resident Evil than her previous ghostly actions would seem. Evie is a bioweapon designed to hide in plain sight, but ultimately create unkillable soldiers for whoever pays the highest price for her. But, you know, sending her to a different facility on a cargo ship, plus a literal weapon disguised as a kid throwing a temper tantrum, equals disastrous shipwreck and an unfortunate coincidence for the Baker family who happen to live nearby. And boy howdy, I don't know about you, but Ghost Girl is actually deadly weapon that causes barely controlled insanity as well as terrifying mold creatures is pretty dang scary. Then you have to fight her, and chasing her around while she's summoning memories of Mia trying to kill you isn't exactly the most chill of times. But then, of course, there's the reveal.
No! No, no, no!
This is absolutely one of my favorite twists in any video game I've ever played because of how everything falls into place after that realization. Of course you couldn't shoot Grandma, of course you couldn't see her well, of course Eveline shows up as a little kid because even though her body has aged a tremendous amount, her mind hasn't. She hums the same song in the house and in the caves. Her real form doesn't show up in any of the quote-unquote childish areas of the property, as though she's trying to throw you off, and it's completely clear why she relies so heavily on the molded and hallucinations rather than what remains of her quickly decaying body. These are all things you can think back on and thoroughly enjoy in future playthroughs of the game, but in the present moment you have absolutely no time to think.
Why does everyone hate me?
After what may be the grossest animation I've ever seen in my life, you're thrust into a final boss battle. Now, I do have to say that this boss battle isn't the scariest of all time, simply because all you have to do is unload all your ammo into Eveline. But this fight is one of my absolute favorites because of how wonderfully cathartic it is. It's just bang bang bang, bye Evie! Well, unless you die, in which case the game presents you with one of the worst death scenes to ever exist. Now, I think Eveline is objectively the scariest character in the game, but Marguerite is hands down the scariest to me, mostly because she preys on several of my phobias. The game gives you the first taste of Marguerite's character at the same time as all the others. She's an eager mother with a mean temper. I mean, you'd think people would be a little more relaxed when you refuse to eat human organs. I described Marguerite as a helicopter mom earlier because of how she acts in this tape recorded by Mia. She's dead set against anyone leaving the house except for Ethan, who she mostly wants in a body bag. And as you traverse the area she's guarding, it's clear that she's trying to protect you from Eveline's stuff. She does this as every normal mom does, by summoning swarms of normal-sized bugs and the occasional grotesquely large-sized bugs that will kill you within a few stings, and she also puts spiders on the door she doesn't want you to go through. You know, everything in the mother's handbook. She's also very clear that she wants you to either leave or die, but...
Fucking shitcock! Show yourself!
Whoa, if you're really acting as Evie's mom, you shouldn't be saying stuff like that. She's still just a kid. Okay, never mind. I'm just gonna try to get through this area.
I told you to stay out of here!
Or not. Maybe I can take down Marguerite and I won't have to deal with her anymore. Well, we got past there, but we need her lantern to progress. Let's go back and pick that up. Here we go, and... Oh! Oh...
Don't you worry none!
Oh. Yeah, well, as you can see, Marguerite transforms into this hideous spidery beast monster with super long arms, and I hate it. A lot of my favorite, and of course by favorite I mean things that would instantly kill me if I saw them in real life by the amount of fear they would generate, horror monsters all have this tall, long silhouette, like Junji Ito's fashion model, and basically any creature played by Javier Botet. So this woman growing way too long arms and being able to reach you from across an entire room or even from different floors is my worst nightmare. So that's bad enough, but she also has this horrible bug nest thing on her womb, I guess, which she uses to literally birth more bugs, and I wish I was kidding about that. Everything about this fight is gross, takes too long, and forces you to look at her for too long, and I don't like it. I don't want to keep looking at it. Get off the screen! As I said before, Resident Evil Biohazard is one of my absolute favorite horror games, and so much of that love comes from all the incredible characters. One of my favorite things about this game is that only one character seems to be completely evil. Everybody else shows some kind of regret to be in this situation, or can otherwise be understood as a victim. As much as I hate thinking about Marguerite, she has notes about her changes and how they're scaring her, and even Eveline isn't totally to blame for the situation. She had dangerous things implanted into her to make her into a weapon. She was raised in a horrible situation without a family, in a laboratory, and ultimately, that's all she wanted, a family. All of the characters in this game are complex, interesting, and ultimately relatable in some way, but I will stand by my statement that the women are definitely more frightening than the men. They cover more phobias and perspectives, and especially in the case of Eveline, the twists and turns throughout the story truly put different and more horrifying points of view on the game you're playing, even on repeat playthroughs. Thank you so much for watching and listening to me ramble for far too long about these characters I love so much. And I wish you all happy gaming in the world of Resident Evil Village, where I hope the new female villains will send even more chills down your spine.